Hi, welcome. Welcome back to Cardinal Rose Tarot. Thank you for being here. Welcome to my channel. So today is a day that I normally don't do anything for my tarot channel or my this kind of work as it goes with my channel and my esoteric work and whatever. But I follow a couple, as you know, if you follow my work, I'm a true crime follower on YouTube. I follow true crime cases that interest me. I'm interested in crime as a therapist and also as an anarchist because anarchy, I'm not trying to do a video about anarchy. I'm an anarchist, okay? And that's a whole other conversation. Maybe I'll get into that someday. But that's part of the reason that I also am interested in crime, because I am anti-policing and and I understand that that's a whole other discussion that I don't want to distract from what I'm doing here with that discussion, but it is a very worthy discussion. I'm a police and prison abolitionist. That doesn't mean I don't believe in justice for victims of violent crime. I do believe that there needs to be a justice system and there needs to be severe consequences for carrying out the kinds of crimes that often get covered, right? So that's a different discussion though. The reason I'm decided to do this reading this morning is because of the hidden true crime scandal that's been going on with Dr. John and Lauren MATTHIAS. And for me personally, to a lesser degree, Megan Connor, who is part of their orbit. She launched her own channel off of their work, of being a guest on their show, and also more of a distant relative of one of the crime committers in a case, right? So a recent information just came out recording Dr. John MATTHIAS's take on some things, and I just became super frustrated. And then I was like, well, what do I do? My channel's not about that. I'm a therapist, but I don't present like a therapist a lot of times, so people are often surprised to learn that I'm a therapist because I cuss a lot. I'm kind of a radical. Like I don't comport myself in a way that you might imagine therapists to, or maybe not, I don't know. But in any case, I caught myself feeling nervous to try to take on Dr. John because he's a doctor of psychology and I'm not a doctor. I'm a master's degree of social work. I'm not a doctor of social work. So he has more education than I do. He also has more power and more clout and more position on YouTube than I do. And I doubt that any people of consequence are even necessarily going to see this upload. But I even second guessed like my whole setup here because it's not a therapist setup, it's a card reader setup. And somebody like Dr. John or people that might critique me back might say, well, what kind of therapist is she even? She's a card reader and blah, and try to, and that's something that Megan Connor already did when I confronted her about her training and her skills, is she called into question immediately whether I was an ethical therapist, implying as much, right? Because I was questioning her. So I immediately was like, well, I'm going to attract all kinds of criticism because I'm not in a professional setting. I'm not sitting behind a desk with my degrees on the wall with a fucking button-up tie and a graduate cap on or whatever, right? And it's like, I don't owe the world that, and I need to let go of that and not be intimidated by somebody like a doctor of psychology like Dr. John, because I am a therapist and I do have position to confront what he's doing, which I think is really fucked up. And so it just came out that more evidence of their fuckery just came out, I guess. I can't do the whole background because that's not what this channel is and it would waste too much time. So you'll know if you follow this what this reading is about, and if you don't follow it, this is just going to probably be something that you skip over. So these are my concerns about Dr. John's conduct. They're examples from a therapist. Oh, and that reminds me. So these are my credentials because it's important, I think, to show my credentials in this situation because I'm critiquing a fellow therapist. So I'm a master of social work. Here's my diploma from Eastern Washington University. I have a master's degree in social work. You can see it right there. If you need to screenshot that to prove what I'm saying, go ahead. I also have my undergrad. I have 2 undergraduate degrees because I'm a geek. So I have a Bachelor of Arts from the Evergreen State College, and that's what this is. in Spanish and Latin American studies. I majored in Spanish and Latin American studies. I speak Spanish fluently. And my third diploma, which I don't know where it is, and I'm trying to remember if I ever even sent off for it, is from Portland State University, and I have a Bachelor of Arts in drawing and painting and printmaking because I'm also an artist. And yes, the answer is I do have student loans that I'm paying off and probably will be for a long time. So I have position, and I'm not somebody like Megan who's just out there deciding I'm a life coach and I'm gonna say that. Somebody, I just lurked her page the other day and someone called her an expert in coercive control and she didn't correct them. And it's like, okay, you might know firsthand in your own lived experience what it felt like to be coercively controlled by somebody. Many people do. Many people have that lived experience. And you're an expert in your personal experience in that case, but you're not an expert in coercive control, okay? And you should be correcting people that call you an expert, Megan. You're not an expert. You haven't gone to school for that, okay? I'm not an elitist. I don't care. If you didn't go to college, I don't fucking care. I'm not an educational snob, okay? But what we're talking about is like anybody being able to say that they're an expert on anything, and there's so much AI that it's like, what's real anymore? That's the concern. So that's why I'm showing these credentials. So my first concern was with how Dr. John handled his coverage of the Delphi case. And it was his mockery of the criminal defense team raising very legitimate concerns about Richard Allen, why he was imprisoned, for one, when he was not being federally charged. He was being charged locally with a murder, yet he was imprisoned while he was awaiting his sentencing or not sentencing, but after his arrest, right? He was put in prison, not in the local jail. That is a problem, right? The criminal defense team was right to be concerned about that. We all should be concerned about that, okay? Dr. John made fun of it as if it wasn't a big deal. Then the criminal defense team was raising, again, very legitimate concerns about Richard Allen's treatment in prison. He was being ridiculed. He was being tortured psychologically, according to them. He was being put in solitary for no reason for extended periods of time. His sense of reality was fracturing extremely at that time. And the criminal defense team was right to be raising those concerns. Once again, Dr. John MATTHIAS mocked that as if it was unethical behavior on the part of the criminal defense team. That was when I first started to become worried. I already thought he was a little bit of a blowhard, but a lot of male doctors in this country or society are arrogant because everybody worships the masculine genius in this culture, okay? So he's used to being admired and listened to and looked up to. He's accustomed to that, okay? And so that was the first time I raised alarm and confronted him directly. He rubbed me the wrong way a couple times, but whatever. He's allowed to be arrogant. I'm allowed to be annoyed with his arrogance, and he's allowed to be arrogant. End of story. But once he started mocking as a true crime coverer on YouTube, the conduct of the criminal defense team that was actually exactly what they should be doing, I was concerned as a social worker, interested in crime from a variety of perspectives, from the victim's perspective, from a criminal defendant's perspective, from a sociological perspective. That is my discipline. And so I confronted him and challenged him, and he did not like it. You didn't like it, Dr. John. You got right in there and said, I don't even think he responded that time. A bunch of other of his fans dogpiled on right away and started trying to shut me up, and this isn't the place. And I'm like, yeah, it is the fucking place. I'm commenting from my discipline just like he is from his discipline in a case that he has nothing to do with. Neither do I. I have a right to challenge his perspective from my discipline as a social worker. So I thought that was really messed up. The other thing that he did was in another upload, he was talking about the way that he interviews everyone in a criminally convicted or criminal defendant's life to do a risk assessment about whether they're safe to be released into the community. He utilizes multiple tools to do a criminal assessment, risk assessment of defendants or of prisoners, right? He was talking at length about how he speaks to everyone he can from the prisoner's life, from their family, co-workers, friends, childhood, whatever. I made a comment of interest saying, wow, I'm surprised that that people who are incarcerated lose their HIPAA rights, because for me as a therapist, I literally can't imagine my clients giving me permission to talk to everybody in their life, because often they've been hurt by the people in their lives. So they don't want their therapist going and interviewing them to learn more about my client, right? My client wants to tell their story. They don't want their loved ones or other people necessarily telling their story for them. So I made that comment and he was immediately defensive. You were immediately defensive, Dr. John. You came on and said they don't lose their rights. I wasn't violating their rights. No. He didn't want to be criticized. And I could feel by another colleague, he also didn't want to be criticized by a woman. It rubbed him the wrong way that I was calling his criminal expertise into question publicly on his page, and he got really super defensive. Then it's like I don't even know. So I made my arguments and that's it. I almost felt like I had to apologize for calling his take into question. And I kept saying, I remember, thank you for your work. Thank you for your work. Because I have a part that also feels intimidated by confronting a doctor and having the doctor shut me down. Because who hasn't had that experience? Pretty much every person in this society has had an experience of being treated badly and disrespected by a medical doctor. It's a common problem. He's not a medical doctor, he's a doctor of psychology, but still, okay? It's a great example of the way that he doesn't handle his power well. Then my case, I became concerned in their coverage of the unknown number case about the documentary that recently came up on Netflix, where Lauren was going on and on about the daughter, the victim, the stalking victim, the actual victim of stalking. Now in retrospect, I'm like, she was jealous of the stalking victim. You were jealous of her actual crime that was committed against her. And she started talking about this teenage girl with no emotion, as if she had, and she kept saying she has a very flat affect. I noticed that she has a very flat affect, and they were talking about it in that sort of rubbernecky way without any sensitivity to the daughter, who was still a teen or early 20s something. And Dr. John was like, yeah, and they were smiling and getting into the salacious details of this and picking it apart. And I was like, they have no remembrance right in this moment that they're talking about an actual teenage girl who was criminally, violently stalked, I would say, by her own mother, okay? And they treated it as abnormal and bizarre when she was being embraced by this mother in the footage in the documentary. And I once again went on and said, I challenged it point by point and said, she's not being a flat affect. She's not enmeshed and like, God, what he said something like, this is a huge example of like really severe codependency. And I was like, I think it's actually fight or flight. The violent stalker that's been stalking her is now embracing her and she doesn't know what to do. And there's a camera on her. Okay. So I was disgusted with their coverage, and that's when I unsubscribed, because I was like, if they're talking about these real people, real human beings who've been through something really terrifying over an extended period, I don't want to watch them. They don't have good takes on things. In my opinion, as a social worker, social work is sociology in practice. That's what I do. That's a nutshell way to describe my work, okay? Your conduct is beyond the pale, Dr. John and Lauren. You're the worst kinds of exploiters. It really makes me sick. It makes me want to make a video like this, because I want people to know you should not be having a therapist that acts like this, that makes you feel condescended to, that doesn't like to be criticized, that likes the sound of their own voice that much, that likes to get on a soapbox and look and preach down to others about human behavior. Okay, it's just sickening. You guys make me fucking sick. I can't stand it. And that's the other thing, is that they'll now be able to sit back in this ivory tower because of the way I talk about this and call me and my professionalism into question, because I'm emotional, because I'm cussing, because I'm a tarot reader, because I have lit candles here and an altar and I look like I live maybe close to poverty. Okay, they're going to try to call into question, and they'll actually believe that. They believe that they have moral authority over someone like me, sadly, but they're not going to listen to this and be like, oh my God, she's right, she called us out. You know, they're not going to think that. What I'm doing it so other people understand. Not everybody needs a teacher like me to come say that, but maybe you do. Maybe you're vulnerable and you've been exploited by your therapist. And this is to say, this is highly exploitational, what Dr. John is doing. The other concerns I have are um, in the recent body cam footage of a cop that was coming and interviewing Lauren Matthias and her assistant Grayson about the fact that they're being criminally stalked, supposedly, which is a bunch of fucking bullshit. They were never being stalked. They were trying to shut down criticism so it didn't hurt their channel. And it's body cam footage that Jay from Jay is for Justice and Every Day with Jay on YouTube. I love her work. Go follow and subscribe to her channels if you like true crime and roasting content. It's really good. She released this body cam footage, and it's recording Dr. John on the phone on speaker with the cops and his wife, saying, "My main concern." Oh my God, excuse me. My main concern is our work is about to go up in flames in an instant, and we need to get ahead of this, basically, is what he's saying. That's his main concern. Not for the victims, not for their emotions, he's worried about their brand at this point and trying to do damage control and trying to talk to the cop as if he's going to direct the cop about what to do and what to investigate. And then when the cop's like, well, if you're talking about this behavior crossing state lines, I'm not a federal person. You would need, maybe that would be the FBI. What does Dr. John do? Instead of laughing and saying, I don't think this is an FBI matter, he says, yeah, actually, I agree. And I think there are 2 federal cases here. And then immediately Grayson and Lauren are both saying, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yes, this is a federal case. Are you fucking joking? This is the worst example of weaponizing privilege and the law and criminal justice system to attack your enemies. It is so beyond unethical for a doctor of psychology to be doing. You are supposed to cause no harm to people, to your community, to crime victims especially. If you are a criminal psychologist and this is your conduct, this is outrageous. It is so unethical. I don't even know what your board would... Truly, this is sickening. Dr. John Matthias, criminal psychologist. Joke of a criminal psychologist is what you are. I tried to make notes so that I would stay somewhat on track here because I knew I was going to get emotional. And I can't read the notes because you can't cover... Okay, so that was my other note. You're not covering crime. You're covering yourself and your knowledge and your expertise and whatever piggybackers that want to get on board with your vision is what you're covering. That's what you're covering. You're very pro-cop, and a lot of true crime is pro-cop, okay? I'm not pro-police. I'm not pro-cop. I will say this, though. That body cam footage, I never would have found myself agreeing with the cop normally. I agreed with literally just about every single thing that cop said in his body cam footage. You guys are actually not the victims. Then it would be the other people. You're not. What are you talking about? This isn't... I need actual evidence, right? Like, this cop is doing the right thing. It's refreshing to hear a cop talk like that, in my opinion, because I'm anti-police, okay? And that's who I am as somebody who's studied society and sociology, and you're allowed to be pro-cop, okay? We don't have to agree about policing for you to hear what I'm saying as truth in this upload, okay? Policing is a different matter. You're weaponizing your privilege and trying to punish people for criticizing you because of your own behavior. You don't want people to find out about your own conduct that spoke negatively and badly about crime victims' families. As a criminal psychologist and a journalist wife, you guys have breached every single ethical thing in place for journalism and for mental health that I can think of. And I'm not even a journalist, and I understand why those journalism boundaries are in place. It's to protect people and to protect the integrity of the story. It's sickening what you're doing. It is so sick. It makes me outrageous to the point that I was like, normally I just see clients for my private practice today on Sunday. But I was like, hell no, I'm going to respond to this right now because this is my practice as a social worker, is to call out this kind of power abuse. You're the worst kind of power abuser. It's really, really disgusting. You have a responsibility as a criminal psychologist, in my opinion, to look at crime from all angles, not pro-cop, not white privilege, not... I can't... You're so irresponsible. It's beyond... I think this is about it. I think this is everything. You were implying that the cop had an investigative responsibility to you and your wife, and it's sickening when the cop is saying back to you straight up, actually no, you guys are responsible for providing me evidence. It's really, I've never seen two people work so hard to accept no responsibility. Meanwhile, they're causing a wake of emotional destruction and trauma behind them, covering crime of all things. I just find it so egregious. And so finally, what I wanted to do before I wrap this up, because I am a card reader and because I'm not ashamed to admit that, I'm not the one who would ever call someone's professionalism into question because they like other stuff like this too. So why would I be embarrassed to own everything about it here? It's partly because I'm afraid, because I know what I'm talking about, but because of the stuff that I'm into, I'm afraid because of that, I'm not going to be taken seriously. And I want to be taken seriously when it comes to this. But that's my own situation. And I'm proud to read cards and I'm proud to be into all of this. And so I'm not going to worry about that anymore. I'm just going to smudge away your crappy fucking energy, your exploitative, horrible power abusing energy. And then because you're such a storytelling, love to hear your own voice, love to explore the philosophy of power and male and masculine power, and as a football player and Brad Pitt and Fight Club and all, whatever that is, go. I don't know what your deal is and your obsession with it is, but I'll just share about this because you'll appreciate this. This is an out of print deck. It's called the Soleone Tarot. It's by an Italian illustrator. Her name is Elisabetta Cassini, I think is her name. Casari. Elisabetta Casari. This uses the traditional tarot and it turns it on its ear because it explores power abuse and the power abusers of feudalism and of the royal system and of the caste system, right? Tarot involves the royal court, right? It has kings and queens and pages and all that. It's medieval in origin, and so medieval concerns are a big part of the tarot. And this artist said, let's explore that from the peasant class. Okay, and Italians are a nation that know about power abusers, right? And so that's what this deck is about. It's for the poor. This deck is about the triumph of the poor over the royals. And so I'm going to pull a card for Dr. John. What represents you, Dr. John, in this equation and your conduct? What represents you and your conduct? This is a really valuable deck. And so you should be honored that I'm pulling a card for you from this valuable deck. I use it especially for crimes of power abuse because it captures this kind of thing so well. And it's like I'm including you in my own little mini version of The Sopranos or of, Scarface or something, right? Because those stories are often exploring power abuse and how the little guy gets power and then what it does to him and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what's happened to you. You got power and then all of a sudden it became about your brand. That was the other thing. I knew I was forgetting something. In your We Respond video, your answer to everybody's concerns and raising the concerns that you are actually the one doing the bullying, which you should be concerned about if you're a doctor of psychology. You should always be checking your power in any dynamic and whether your power is disproportionate to the other people involved, which it is. You have far more power in this equation. And you, in We Respond, you said the reason we're not going to go through and do a point-by-point response is because that's not our brand. So that's what you're clearly more concerned about, is the hidden true crime brand, than the concerns and the feelings and the emotions of the crime victims' families at this point. You're just too worried about saving your own fucking skin. I don't know what kind of doctor of psychology is worried about that, right? It's disgusting. Your conduct disgusts me as a therapist. What is a card to represent John's conduct in this case? The Wheel of Fortune. This is where you are on the wheel. I don't know if you can see it. So the Wheel of Fortune is, you might say, a phrase that represents this is what goes up must come down. Here's this man. He's on a torture wheel. Okay, this is what I mean about this tarot deck taking the traditional tarot and turning the images totally on there. The Wheel of Fortune would never be portrayed like this in any other deck but this one. This man is on a torture wheel. He's on the downswing of the wheel. He's on the underside. You feel strung up. That's the energy you in. You feel accused. And as if you are the victim here. It's really embarrassing. Meanwhile, you've profited extensively off of these crimes and off of the grief and the sorrow of these crime victims' family. Here you are thinking that you're being tortured on this torture wheel. It's really, really telling about what's going on inside and in your own character. Maybe I'll take screenshots of these cards that I pull. This is how you feel. Wake up, dude. This is not you. You're being called into question and you're learning a really hard fucking lesson about the internet being forever. What about Lauren now? What's Lauren's card? What card represents Lauren here? What card represents Lauren? Poor Dr. John being tortured by all these crime victims' families and former hidden gems, and oh my God, we gotta call the cops. Call the cops. Let's get the feds involved. Let's call the FBI on Christina for making TikToks about us and threatening to release messages that we wrote ourselves. You fucking, it's so sickening. Sickening. What about Lauren's conduct here? Let's pull a card for Lauren and then we're just gonna wrap this up. The Four of Pentacles, no movement, no growth. You just double down on yourself and it's like you are shoring up your own fort. You're rigid, you're refusing, you're just trying to protect what you have left, which is clinging to your 4 little coins. That's what you have. That's the mistake that you're making, is trying to cling to everything as it gets torn away from you. What you could do is let go and come forward and be honest and attend to the situation at hand by coming to Jesus, basically, by saying, I need to own up to everything here and tell the truth. You're not doing that, though. This card shows that you're doubled down on your position and you're circling the wagons, basically, to use, you guys are colonial as fuck. So that's in keeping. You're just colonizing these tragedies and then circling the wagons when the people that say, hey, what are you doing? We don't like how you're exploiting this. That's what you're doing. You feel victimized, tortured, and now you've circled the wagons and that's your energy. You're not taking any of it as like, maybe we need to reevaluate, and that's where you're going wrong. So that's going to do it for this reading. Thank you for being here and I'll see you soon.